Hello, YouTuber woobers. A little dark and gloomy here, isn't it? Let's see how we can do. Believe it or not, I don't know how it looks there, but this shirt is closer to red than orange. But so I had an incident a couple weeks ago. It was been about 2 weeks, and my daughter, one of my daughters, has bronchitis, and just because the world is surrounded with COVID this, COVID that, people still get colds and flus and, the things that we got 2 years ago and they didn't have a name for it. So she's been kind of miserable actually for quite a while, for a month or so, because when it gets spited to you, it's really kind of hard to get rid of. So about 2 weeks ago, this weekend, Friday actually, I had a bit of an incident, and it was a conglomeration of a 24-hour bug from her and um, salt. A little bit of salt got into my diet, and I did it willingly on purpose. And I've been eating, like I've shown in some of my videos. I have the Highland Farm organic um, butter, and it's a lightly salted butter. It's like 14 milligrams per tablespoon, I suppose. I mean, who eats just a tablespoon of butter? But I had switched over my last bulk order of eight tubs, 8 pounds. I'd gotten the the no salt, and it sure takes all the fun out of butter when there's no salt in butter. It just means that I use it less often than I did before. Still use it on toast, and I use it for different things. Like if I cook a steak, I'll take a chunk of butter and I'll put it on the steak as it's resting, and it'll melt down, and I can use that as like a dipping sauce. I get very creative. I found a tub of the salted butter, lightly salted, in my freezer. And I thought, well, I'll give that a try, see what it's like. And you think that I just got a bucket of ice cream. And I also allow myself to use a little bit of table salt on some of my foods just that week. The other thing was the naked juice. That I don't know if it's available everywhere, but you could juice vegetables and fruits together to make a healthy drink. And then there's a thing called naked juice, which does that for you and sells it into like a half gallon. And you can get it in different size containers. And I swilled down 2 of those in a week. It's really good, because even though it has kale in there, it has apple, and there's a lot of sugar and other things in it to make it taste better. Potassium is super high in it, though. Just for a serving, it's like 400 milligrams of potassium. So you imagine a whole quart, how much it would be. So, there was a bunch of little things, but the funny thing about salt, if you have, like in the United States, we have our Thanksgiving dinner, and people will sit down and they'll engorge it to lots of varieties of food, and it'll be high in starch and high in salt and high in sugar and high in this and high in that. And of course, you usually have turkey, so you got the tryptophan that you have from the turkey. So you usually will feel the effects of that dinner rather rapidly. But the funny thing is about generally speaking with salt is that you don't feel the effects of salt for a few days. You don't see that initially unless you eat something that's super high in sodium, like a Chinese food or huge bag of Cheeto corn curls, or things that are extremely high in salt, like coming up to St. Patrick's Day, the traditional family, where I'm from, type of meal is the corned beef and cabbage, and that's when I look up the numbers for corned beef and cabbage now, it's like around 1,000 milligrams of sodium just for like 4 ounces of corned beef, which is like a Big Mac when you think about it. And then the potatoes, if you could do it right and you cook the potatoes and the cabbage and the turnip and the carrots all in the soaking water that you did with the corned beef, then they're all loaded with sodium too. And of course, you're going to use butter on everything, and you have to have the soda Irish bread to go with it, which actually isn't that high in sodium at all, which is kind of comical in itself. But you kind of get my drift, a huge chunk of salt uh, with a simple meal. Now, of course, there's ways to prepare that meal without all the salt. You can like cook all the vegetables in plain water, and if you're doing the corned beef, it's going to be high in sodium because that's what it is. It's a piece of beef brisket that's been cured in salt, and so there's little ways around all that. And I tend to think of my history of my life and eating foods like that I've eaten. I just am amazed that I'm still alive from all of the salt that I consumed. But at any rate, back to my dirty little secret thing, because I don't want this to be a 3-hour video. It wasn't big changes that I did. It was these minute little things. And the best thing in my food pan right now are the Built Bars. I know I talk about them too much, but they're really kind of a godsend because they've been bringing my blood sugar down and my weight down, and it helps even out my blood sugar through the day. And it's a significant thing. And even still, I managed to sneak in sodium that I shouldn't have had. And so I had a number of things happen because I do a therapy every day, or I do it 5 times a week, which is for my lymphedema on my legs. I have these compression boots that I wear, at least 5 days a week that help reduce the fluid in the legs and push the fluid up out of the legs. The heart can process it, and then I kind of pee it out. Lymphedema is a condition that's made worse with sodium. So on this Friday, I had excess of salt. Not a lot. Not a lot. And if it was a lot, I would have been in the hospital. But it was just enough that I had a couple of issues, and I had some shortness of breath, a lot of shortness of breath. And plus, I had this cold come on to me at the same time. So it was kind of a long day. I basically stayed on my oxygen all day, and I finally recovered. And I didn't have eaten anything, so I ended up peeing out a ton of fluid. That particular day, one of my aides that come and helped me with my feet, she called out sick that day, so I didn't have that therapy. So my left leg actually kind of swelled up a bit, just enough to cause a little bit of a wound on the top of my foot, which is, a whole other thing. So I'm working on healing that. But the thing is about the salt. The dirty little secret about salt in general is that it takes a few days to appear so your body notices it. If you do a humongous amount of salt at once, you're going to notice that effects of that. But if you just increase your, say you did something 3 or 4 days ago, the thing is that you do something 3 or 4 days ago and you say, gee, that didn't bother me at all. And the scale didn't change at all. And you don't feel any different. You say, oh, great, that I can do that again because I didn't feel any different. And then you do it again and you say, wow, I'm cool. I can, you know, delve into that stuff every once in a while. Then all of a sudden, snap, you're down for the film because it took 4 or 5 days for it to really build up in your system and show up. And then 4 or 5 days later, you're going, well, what the heck did I eat today? What did I eat yesterday? Well, what did I eat the day before? And then you finally go back a number of days and you go, oh, it was that stupid thing. So it's interesting. It's just a funny little thing. Today I went off on a joyride with my daughter. One of my daughters. There's a little restaurant. Well, I live in Western Massachusetts. Um, we are about 3 to 4 hours from the Eastern Atlantic Ocean or the Atlantic Ocean. So there isn't a lot of seafood out here. There's very little seafood. Hey, wannabe. I know. I took my table salt that I had left and I dumped it in the trash. There is salt around the house, but if I really have to go hunt for it, I'm not going to bother with that. So, but anyway, today we went out on a little journey. My daughter's been sick for the last month, so we haven't been able to go off on a Saturday and go off for a drive. But there's a restaurant. It's about an hour from here, from where I live. Well, it's a little more than that because I got to go to her house, and then I think it's 45 minutes or so from her house, and it's 45 minutes from my house. It's just that 45 minutes from here to my daughter's house. But they have the most amazing fried clams, and I've been raised on fried clams since I was a kid. But when I was a kid, I lived near the East Coast, so that there was more opportunities for that. But it's hard to find in Western Massachusetts, um, particularly in the wintertime. And this place here, they truck in seafood every Saturday, and one of the things are whole belly clams, which are usually in the shells. They have to shell them, and then because if you get whole belly clams in a can, then they're saturated with salt. So it's actually the lowest salt seafood that I could get my hands on. Everything else is very high in sodium and potassium for seafood. So we went off there, and then I asked them not to put any salt when they take it out of the fryer, because that's the next step that they would do is they douse it all with salt. And so it kind of works on me. It could be borderline, but I eat out very little now. There's very few times I can go to a restaurant anymore and find some place that serves food that is low in sodium. So many restaurants now, since the shutdown in Massachusetts anyway, they closed down so many restaurants, and it's just easier for restaurants to do prepackaged, pre-prepared foods and just do things to it to make it look like they just made it themselves. So it's very hard to find foods at a restaurant that are, safe for me. And more often I can do it myself at home. It's boring, but there's no point to go out unless it's going to be a good time. They don't serve alcohol. They haven't gotten their alcohol license yet, but it's a really nice time. And I get to spend some time with my daughter, which is good. I get her away from, you know, the rat race. So we had a nice time today. And but actually after all that, I ended up losing 15 pounds. So, which is a lot for me. So I just keep plucking away. I know. But it's too easy if that's food that salt just sneaks into the diet somewhere that you're just not aware. So unless you're checking salt content over and over again, it gets somewhat challenging. But I just thought I'd do a share. I haven't done any uh, live broadcasts for a while. I'm working on a fairy speak video. As soon as I record it, I might record it tonight. I'm probably going to rest a little bit, and then I might record it tonight, or I'll record it tomorrow. And I have all my cameras all set up over there, 3-camera shoot, one up here, one right here, and then one lower down for the cards, the tarot cards. And so I might work on that. Hopefully be my next video. I hope you guys enjoyed my drone video. It wasn't my drone. I have a friend that I used to work with servicing printers and copiers on the East Coast, and he's really good with a drone. He has a nice DJI 4K drone that he shoots some really great video. And I sent him an SSD for him to load up with video. Raw video, so that I could create some just some easygoing things that you can put on the background and multitask. And so the first one went out with kind of had the St. Patrick's Day flair to it, but it's sure it could be listened to at any other time. And yeah, yep. Before long, it becomes a long video. Oh, and anywho, we will see you later, and be careful. This is, this St. Patty's Day week. You got to be careful about that corned beef and cabbage, because if it's prepared right, it's way over salt. Most restaurants don't prepare it right. Most restaurants will boil all the vegetables separate in plain water and wash out every bit of taste of those vegetables as possible. And then they'll cook the corned beef some other way and lose all the flavor in the corned beef. The real point is you cook the corned beef, and then it's halfway through, you throw all the vegetables in, and you might change the water a couple of times so that you kind of pull some of that salt out, but you're never going to get it all out. But I'm going to be you guys enjoying the corned beef. And have a good one. End stream. Oops. End stream. Not yet. End stream.